last but not least is Dr. Sean Anderson, who's actually a UCLA product, has his own company in San Diego, but has a partnership with one of the local companies here, Aesthetic Medical Technologies, and he will talk about that.
I'd like to present to you a joint venture investment opportunity for a technology called NanoScyl. It's a joint venture between Aesthetic Medical Devices and Aqua Regenerative Therapies. My name is Sean Anderson. As Ahmed said, I'm the founder of Aqua Regenerative Therapies, which is a nanotechnology company based in San Diego. And we've developed some transdermal delivery and some growth factor delivery technologies. On my team, I have Steve DeGraw, who has decades of experience in helping scientists like me become a company and provide services and partnerships with other companies, develop the business. So on one side, we have a skincare technology, and on the other side, we have growth factor technology. And the growth factor technology is what we call NanoScyl, and we're partnering with Aesthetic Medical Devices to make a combination delivery drug therapeutic. So on AMD's side, there's George Hung, who is traveling this week, and Arkady, which is the brains behind making the Electroporation device. And Wayne and Holly are also involved in the company. And then further on down the slide, Jim and Walter are involved in some of the marketing, branding, and investment strategies. And Buzz and David are advisors helping the company and the dermatology side. So there's a really good team here with decades of experience poised to make this combination device happen, and we're excited to tell you about it. So the technology is based on these sugar-based nanoparticles, which were started at UCLA and then kind of morphed into something a little different, taken out of UCLA, which is what I was working on the past few years. And I actually met George at a mixer kind of like this about 3.5, 4 years ago, and we started working together to say, what can we do together? Because I think that collaboration is always better than competition. So how can we make things happen? And so the way the technology works is when you present growth factors in a clustered form to these cell surface receptors, you're going to increase the signaling capacity. You also help with the stability of the growth factors as well. So you get this increased signal that goes down to the nucleus, which then makes other growth factors, other extracellular matrix proteins, helps with cell migration into a wound healing environment, helps with anti-scarring. All these different actions that the cells do start with growth factors, and in our case, with the growth factor presentation. So on the other side of the slide, the unclustered, you have single growth factors bind to receptors, and the signal is not as strong, and the growth factors are not that stable. And so the first part is, how do we present the growth factors to the cell surface receptors? And then the other part of it is, how do we get this combination into the skin? So just real quickly, I know I'm the last person, so I'll try to be quick. How do the two techniques compare between single growth factor and cluster growth factor? So one versus many is the top bullet points. And when you have single growth factors that you add, like in a Regranix or some kind of other treatment, you have a dilute growth factor in terms of the cell surface receptors, versus ours clusters it, and so it's concentrated. Local concentration is increased, so therefore that helps with the activity. The signal strength, as I said, is weak versus strong. And also, I think where this really gets to the core of the technology is with the concentration. And so Regranix or some of these other growth factors require a really high concentration which increase the cost. So then you start having really expensive therapies. And also, it's not good for the body to have these really high concentrations of growth factors. So where the crux of the nanoparticle technology comes is that you don't need as high of a concentration because it lowers the effective dose, and it also increases the stability, so then you don't need as much, and so you're saving on costs. So we have some proof of concepts from some published data a few years ago that shows this is for VEGF or angiogenesis. So this is an in vitro test that showed blood vessel formation. So in this case, the clustered growth factors help with branching of the blood vessels. And this is important in wound healing when you want to get the cells in there to to fulfill the environment, like what Westbrook was talking about with the gel implant. You want the cells to come in, you want them to get signals and start perfusing the new tissue so that it grows faster. And this was our in vitro proof of concept. And so since then, we've done some in vivo, like in the mouse brain. And then we've also looked at some transdermal delivery for porcine skin. But that was like a non-GLP study. So part of the presentation now is looking for investment to help with a GLP type of study so that we can start an FDA submission process and make the partnership move forward. So this is a schematic of how it would work. Aqua has patent protection over the topical formulation. We're working on patent protection over the particles themselves. Aesthetic Medical Devices is working on the electroporation device. Arkady from that slide is the brains behind that. And so how it would work is you would have the wound environment, similar to what Westbrook was talking about, where you have those wounds and you're looking to fill it in. So we have a topical formulation which has the growth factors and the particles suspended in it. And then you put a protective patch over it and you have this electroporation device that's going to create these channels into the skin that are about 200 to 300 nanometers wide. And the particles are about 60 to 80 nanometers wide. And so this not only does it open up these channels, but also creates a charge. So the particles have a high negative surface charge, and so it's going to drive it kind of like a wire, like electrons going through a wire. It's going to drive it into the tissue. And so the goal of this is to get the cells that are in the tissue activated so that they start infiltrating the environment and they start regrowing the tissue. And so there's a few different applications for this product. Most of the people that presented today have talked about wound healing and then also talked about cosmetics. And so for the purposes of this form, reducing scar formation after elective cosmetic procedures would be the goal of this procedure. So someone has a baby, they have a C-section, and you want that scar to go away. My mother-in-law has one that she's not too happy about, and my wife might have one that she wouldn't be happy about coming up. So theoretically, how that would work is you put the topical product in, you put the patch underneath, and then you electroporate it so that it heals up in the scarless wound healing. And one of the growth factors candidates that we're looking at is TGF-beta 3. And so that's a growth factor that is expressed in the fetus, and that's what leads to that scarless wound healing. And what happens is as we age, we get TGF-beta 1 and 2, which take over, and it kind of negates the effects of TGF-beta 3. So then our idea is to re-put that TGF-beta 3 back in there to get the cells engaged and in scarless wound healing. And so another thing that happens when you age is that your extracellular matrix in your skin starts to become oxidized. It starts to break down. That's what leads to our wrinkles. So these are the type of people that are having these procedures, and the skin, unfortunately, does not heal as well as we would like it to. And so the goal of this technology is to get the healing looking like new again. And so as far as the market, I think other people have covered how lucrative this market is. The wound care is a huge problem, and it's going to increase 20 billion up to 2030. And then also the cosmetic procedures are also increasing. I think what Kythera mentioned earlier about the baby boomers, that's what a lot of our market research was about for the topical skincare product that we do separately. And it's just amazing how big the market's going to be. I think that the stat is 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day. And so that the market's just going to get bigger. And so it's a great time to get out there and to get into aesthetic medicine. And so what we're asking for is $100,000 to complete this proof of concept study. So I mentioned before we did some transdermal delivery in porcine skin. So the goal here would be to do a GLP study so that we can submit it to the FDA and start getting the ball rolling on an IND and get the joint venture up and going. So in our experiment, we would radio label these nanoparticles that have the TGF-beta 3 growth factor conjugated to it. Then we would put it into the topical formulation, apply it to the pigs. This would be healthy pigs, no scars, just to look at delivery. And then we would cover up the patch, do electroporation. And they have these portable PET scanners now where you can watch in real time the particles go into the skin and then where they go. You know, do they go into the bloodstream? Do they stay in the localized environment? These are all questions that we could ask that would impact the regulatory concerns later on. So with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation. I have some more information on market and competition, but I think you guys have covered that pretty well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.